Let me know when you're ready to go live, Chief.
We just went live, Commissioner Losbeck.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No.
I'd like to welcome everybody to Clark County Fire District 6 workshop. It is August 18, 2020. The Chief is going to present our strategic plan. What I would ask the folks watching, if you have any questions as we go along, please put those in the chat column on the right-hand side of the YouTube channel. And when we get to the strategic plan in the course of our main meeting during the agenda, we'll take all those questions to that point. So put the questions in as we go, so you won't forget and we won't forget, but we won't be answering those till our regular meeting happens. And I'm pleased to have Chief Maurer go ahead and start our 2020 to 2024 strategic plan PowerPoint. Thanks, Chief.
Thank you, Commissioner. So we started this process on January 1st, 2020, when we had a change in the guard of the administration at District 6. And we know that today the fire service is faced with increasing demands for services and limited resources to meet those demands. So planning is essential for our organization to make the best use of those resources available. This strategic plan considers both internal and external influences that impact our organization, and then our ability to provide those services. So this strategic plan will help guide our organization to meet the demands and challenges of today and in the future. District 6, as we all know, serves over 75,000 people with compassion, care, and professionalism, and it's that service that we provide that enables us to have the community support that we continually do. We serve over 37 square miles, and our neighborhoods include Hazeldale, Salmon Creek, Philida, Mount Vista, the Fairgrounds, and Lake Shore. So we respond out of 3 stations. We're all ALS response, and we see that call volume and the need for services continues to increase as our community grows. We're grateful and accountable to our community. In August, the district had a fire levy lid lift on the ballot, and the community supported that lid lift with over 67% of voter approval. That's a direct reflection of the men and women that we have providing service to the community every day. We're an all-encompassing fire service agency, so we provide fire suppression, emergency medical service, advanced life support, basic life support, wildland firefighting in the urban interface, technical rescue, hazardous materials response, fire prevention, and public education. We're not a completely self-sufficient fire service agency, meaning that we cannot address all these needs on our own without help from our neighboring agencies. The reason we went out for a lid lift and told the community we needed the funds to be back increased to the previously approved voter rate of $1.50 per thousand were to increase staffing, upgrade our facilities, replace apparatus, and address additional apparatus needs, and for firefighter health and safety. When we went into the planning process, normally your strategic plan would be a concept of stakeholders meeting together, large community forums with both internal and external stakeholders, and you'd work together to establish your strategic priorities. Unfortunately, in March, none of us saw the COVID pandemic coming. And so we had to, rather than delay our planning process, we had to adapt to how we did the planning process. So what staff did was a series of surveys, and you'll see that each portion of this plan and our priorities had a different survey associated with them. We had good input from the surveys. Usually the average was over 37 personnel internally would respond, and they gave us good feedback and input. And then in the community, we had less response, but we did have some community response in the survey process. Those responses to the surveys and small group interviews helped us develop this strategic plan. There is a document that will outline the strategic plan in more in depth, and in that document you'll see the organizational structure of District 6 and what disciplines fall under what people. But the administration decided on three guiding principles that were very important to us. So these are our pillars which we make decisions on and modifications from. So the first thing that was very important to us was a healthy community. And by community, we mean not just the public that we serve, but our internal department as well. And we wanted us to be healthy both mentally and physically. And so everything that we do and these changes that you'll see will ask if that improves the health of our community and our personnel. The next guiding principle was leadership presence. That was where we wanted to have a strong presence in leadership from the top down in the organization, from the top down in all of our business partners, such as Local 1805 and community members. And then the last of our guiding principles for the administration was community service. And we believe that we're servant leaders within the community. This strategic plan was built on 4 strategic priorities, and these are where the surveys were based upon and where we gained information from. The first strategic priority was vision, mission, values, and identity. So the first thing we wanted to know is, where are we, where do we want to be, and how will we get there? That objective is explained by where we are now is we're all hazards response fire service agency. Where we want to be is a completely self-sufficient fire service agency, and how we will get there is outlined in the strategic plan. The next objective of vision, mission, values, and identity was to have a clear and visible mission statement. We had a mission statement that was developed years ago. Over time, that mission statement has not been as visible as we'd liked it to. And then when we went through the survey process, many people identified with that current mission statement, so we decided to keep it and make it more prevalent. So far we've added that mission statement to our internal and external website. It's now on our letterhead, and we plan to incorporate more ways to make that mission statement more visible. Previously, we had visions that the department valued. We decided to change those visions into core values because more personnel and members identified with single words and they were easier to remember. So we developed core values that define what they mean to our organization. And then the last thing in vision, missions, values, and identity was we wanted to establish one identity. So our mission statement is dedicated to excellence in protecting and serving our community. Our core values that were voted on by the members of the department are first, service. We are dedicated to our community. Professional excellence. We maintain the highest professional standards in all we do. Integrity. We are honest, trustworthy, and accountable. Honor guides our actions. Innovation. We use vision in our thinking and take calculated, creative risks to adapt, improve, and position us for the future. And teamwork. We bring our own skills and experience, yet recognize that we are better together. We support and depend on each other to achieve our goals. These 5 descriptions are our core values. And moving forward, this is what we want to teach not only our current employees, but new employees coming in. This is what District 6 means to us. Our identity, we went with one patch logo, so where you'll see that this logo will start transitioning on everything you see in District 6 between our patches, our signage, letterhead, SOGs, everything that we put out will have one logo, one identity. The next thing we looked at was response, resources, and effectiveness. With the passage of the levy, the community said that it supports District 6, and with that support becomes the responsibility to use the funding to increase our service levels. So we know that call volume and our population within the district has continued to grow at a steady rate, and we evaluated our response system as a whole and looked at it with others compared in the industry. So to improve effectiveness, we want to increase the health and safety of our personnel. We felt like we needed to increase staffing. So the objectives for response, resources, and effectiveness were first to evaluate our current call types and response and identify efficiencies within there. One of the things we did was change our response to skilled nursing facilities where we weren't as effective as we could be, and we were being utilized for responses that we may not needed to have been there for. We also changed our response for the squad unit. So we looked at changing the response for the squad unit to be, since there was less personnel, we went with less priority calls for that unit. That was enabling us to save the higher priority calls for the larger response unit, such as the engine. We also looked at supporting a second squad out at Station 63 when staff was able to do it. So when we had enough staffing, we'd turn on that apparatus. So those were some efficiencies that we identified and modifications that we made to the plan. We also wanted to evaluate our current staffing and response and identify efficiencies and make modifications to staffing and response with constant evaluation. So like I said, we know that call volumes have been increasing. On average, we increase over 5% a year, with about 13% increase just last year alone. And you can see that steady increase of call volume. When we look at how busy units are and when to add additional staffing, it's not just call volumes that we need to consider, it's also unit hour utilization. However, most of our units are pushing the $2,000 or 2,000 responses a year limit, and when that happens, we know that those units aren't available for overlap and they're not as reliable as we'd like them to be. When a unit's not reliable, we have to have units from other areas respond, which increases our response time and increases the amount of time that it takes for us to get out to the public and help. So this is the unit hour utilization breakdown of these units. So you take the total response per year. I averaged an estimate of 7 hours of working time. And so that working time consists of meal time, exercise time, rig checks, training, and rest. And when you look at that over a 24-hour period, you can see on the far column on the right, the unit hour utilization. When you push utilization at 30%, that's when your units start to become unreliable. So you'll see that engine 6.1 and squad 6.1 are in that 20% range, and that's why we have 2 units out of this station. You can see that 6.3 is at that 29% range. So we have a plan to respond to this increase in call volume and unit hour utilization. This plan is laid out in a 3-phase plan, and the reason for that being is it was important that we show the public that once they agreed to help increase our funding back to where it was, that we are ready to make moves to improve our services to the community. So phase 1 of the deployment plan that we would like to enact through the strategic planning process is immediately staff a squad at 63 on a permanent basis with a firefighter and a paramedic. This will be a full-time ALS unit for increased EMS coverage in our community. What this does is this allows time for the operations chief to build up to phase 2. It's not easy to turn off and on units within the response plan. Those plans have to be built, so we can't do it overnight. However, with phase 1, we've had one of the benefits of COVID, one of the few benefits, has been that we've not used our overtime budget as we anticipate. And so we have room in the overtime budget to staff this squad full-time starting September 1st, if needed. So phase 2 of the plan, once the response plan is updated, the ops chief has a time to work with CRESA and get the run cards to where we need them to be. We want to move to phase 2, which in this phase will replace squad 6.3 with engine 6.4. Engine 6.4 will be staffed with 1 captain, 1 paramedic, and 1 firefighter, making all 4 of the district's engines companies comparable. Phase 1 we anticipate will last from September to January. Rough timeline of turning on phase 2 to allow CRESA time to develop those run cards would be starting in January. At that point, shutting down squad 6.3 and adding engine 6.4. We really evaluated the engine and squad model, and in the end, we decided that we needed the engine model. Right now, there's so much required training that firefighters must complete. We have been finding that they can't complete those during the day with the interruption of calls and all their other duties, and a lot of our daily duties are lacking. So if by replacing an engine, we can take one unit out of service to accommodate training and still run the same response model that District 6 runs today. Phase 3 of the process, again, we want to get to where we're a self-sufficient fire service agency. We want to provide the recommended apparatus and staffing for a first alarm fire, and do so without relying on mutual aid from neighboring agencies. So in phase 3, we would like to purchase a truck and staff that truck full-time out of Station 6-3. Truck 6-3 will then take the place of Engine 6-4, and there will be ongoing truck company operations training that are leading up to that phase. In order for CRESA to work with dispatching, we want to move to a light-heavy concept in phase 2 of this process. So what that means is we would have a heavy response unit and a light response unit. This allows us to split the call volume between the two units. A light response unit would be an engine that would be responding to your normal medical calls, your engine calls. We would set up that heavy response unit as that second engine, and then that would be responding to more your truck type calls. So in phase 2, we're building the base for the phase 3 model to be a self-sufficient fire service agency. So in order to make those plans happen and that response model to be put into play, we have to hire. To get to a fourth engine company, we have to create 2 full-time positions. In order to staff 2 full-time positions, we have to hire a total of 8 people. It takes 4 personnel per position to staff those positions. We also have 2 personnel that are retiring, so we need to replace those positions. Those would be replacement positions, not additional positions. So the cost to hire 8 personnel and add 2 full-time positions to the district is about $1.2 million a year annually. Again, the other 2 would be replacements, so those don't affect our budget. So we're looking at hiring an academy of 10 personnel, and we're hoping to start that hiring process now to have them online in the first of the year. So first of the year 2021. With the building of the training facility and the fact that the board allowed us to add a 3rd captain to the training division, we are now able to have an in-house academy. An in-house academy of 10 personnel saves the district about $100,000. And it allows personnel to be trained by our own department. Once we turn on Engine 6-4, that engine will have to be staffed with an officer. Currently, the district has an active acting captain list of 6 personnel. 3 of those personnel would be promoted to captain at that time when we turn on Engine 6-4. And then I already outlined the response model on how we want to roll that out in 3 phases. So again, the end goal for our department is a professional, self-sufficient fire service agency. The third objective that we wanted to address with this strategic plan is to develop a healthy, safe, and informed community. The first objective within that is to redesign the volunteer program in order to support public information and prevention. We've already taken steps towards doing that by transitioning the volunteer program from combat firefighter to support services. COVID has slowed down that transition a little bit, and we're not sure when we'll be able to get personnel in to start that program, but we're building that program and we'll be ready to go when COVID allows us to bring people in and train them. One of the areas that we think that District 6 is lacking is a prevention position. Right now we have a person that's in charge of public education and prevention, and they're really 2 full-time jobs. One of the best things a fire service agency can do is mitigate risk before it happens. And so what we need to help us with that is a prevention position. What we're looking for in that kind of position is we're open to evaluating all different aspects of it, whether it be part-time, full-time, and how we want to staff it. But what we really need that position to do is to do pre-fire inspections help us do programs that address high-risk populations and diverse populations in the community and build those programs so we can prevent fire and injuries before they happen. And then the last part of that is to increase community involvement. District 6 has already been very active in the community, and we think with facilitating this fire prevention position, in addition to the public information officer, that we can really build a robust community involved program. The last area of the strategic plan is to ensure the stability of service delivery. The first thing that we needed to do to ensure stability was to successfully secure a fire lid lift for the August 4th election. Again, we did that and the public supported us 67%, which we were overwhelmed with that support. The next thing that we needed to do was evaluate the current facilities and address the needs and identify improvements. So we know that Station 61 is not seismically sound. We know after the processes of Station 62 and Station 63 that we have the opportunity to make the facilities more safety conscious and healthy for our employees. And we also can update our alerting systems to tap out apparatus sooner and decrease our response times. All of these things need to be addressed with the Station 61 facility, which is our busiest headquarters facility. So we would like to start the process now of getting an RFQ out, a request for qualifications for our architectural and design firm, and start the rebuilding process of Station 61. We also need to evaluate the current fleet, address needs and improvements, and adopt a formal apparatus replacement plan. You'll see in Appendix A of the strategic plan that there is the apparatus replacement plan there for you. So there are some things in our fleet that need to be replaced and updated, and I will go through that in just a minute. We want to evaluate our current training practices, identify needs, and develop programs. One of the areas that staff has been hitting hard is that we'd like to get all of our firefighters, IFSAC Firefighter 1 and Firefighter 2 certified by the end of the year. The reason for that is if we can do that, we can decrease the amount of required training hours that our personnel need. It also shows to other agencies that we are a professional organization with certified individuals. Last year, we took time to develop an officer development program. We don't have that same type of program for the battalion chief rank, so that type of program would need to be developed as well. We want to continue to build relationships with all of our stakeholders, and mostly we want to continue to build relationships with our local who we partner with. So that's one area that we've been working on hard this past year. We want to continue to do that. In order to maintain our service stability, we would like to plan for an EMS levy to run in the fall of the 2022 election. That's when our EMS levy will run out and we will need to renew that. So apparatus replacement plan is lengthy, but I'll hit the highlights of what we were looking for with the apparatus replacement plan. So in January 2020, we would like to, we should do this right away. I'm sorry, not January 2020, but fall 2020. Surplus 606, which is engine 151. It's past its time of service and mileage. We also have 627, the Honda CRV. That's a unit that's way past its years of service, and now we have staff rigs that personnel can use when needed. In fall of 2020, we want to begin the specification process to replace Battalion 6-1. We also want to consider replacing Training 6-1, EMS 6-1, and PIO 6-1. Those are slated for a year in the future. The only reason why we want to consider them now is a good time to buy those type of vehicles with reductions in costs that we're seeing right now. So those would be an evaluation to see if they're more cost effective to buy now, but the BC rig would need to be specified and replaced. The plan is to move that battalion chief rig down to training, and then it can also be used as a reserve battalion chief rig, which we don't have a good option for right now. In January of 2021, we want to begin the specification process for a light engine. That would be the engine that would complement eventually a truck company. And then in January 2022, begin the specification process for a truck. If we can move through this entire plan as outlined, we will have set our department up to be a self-sufficient fire service agency at a professional level by the end of 2024. And that is all I had for the strategic plan, unless you had any questions.
Commissioner Collins here.
Go ahead, Case.
I just wanted to compliment you on your presentation, how well that was laid out, how thoughtful it was presented.
Thank you.
And I would like to compliment you and staff on the 30-some page full document for this process. It's as good as I've ever seen, and I don't think we could have hired an outside agency to come in and do better. So we really appreciate it. There was a lot of time put into it, a lot of thought, and I think it gives the public a really good response from the fire district.
Thank you.
I don't think I have anything additional to add that the other two commissioners haven't covered. I appreciate the citizen involvement and the partnership with Local 1805 and the hard work of the administrative team that put this great plan together.
Thank you.
One thing it's probably been asked, but I'll ask it again. On our patch, the Fire District 6, it doesn't say Clark County anywhere. Has that been addressed?
We didn't include Clark County in it because it seemed to get busy, and then everybody else is a Clark County, so we felt like we stood out a little bit without it.
So to Casey's point, there's probably 25 or 30 Fire District 6s in the state of Washington. So maybe on our letterhead, like you had previously underneath, we could put Clark County or something like that. What do you think?
We do have that on our letterhead. We're off to the right.
Okay.
It says Clark County. Yeah, and any official correspondence, it has Clark County on it as well.
You go to places all the way around the world to see patches, at different locations. I just saw them up in Leavenworth, and, all of them talk about, what county they're from. So, I just don't know. It seemed like we'd be on the cutting edge by taking away the county on the patches.
I think that to speak to the patch part, I appreciate what Commissioner Collins is saying. I think that also there is some carryover to affiliation directly with that county organization, meaning that for citizens or folks at large, they may associate us as a direct entity or a direct part of Clark County, and when in actuality we are Fire District 6 in Clark County.
Yeah, it's a major change. I think, the history, since the beginning, I thought this always said Clark County. And all of a sudden we're, could be from Kalamazoo. And, I don't know. It's just, you're talking about identity and branding and name familiarity and everything else. I think this is a step backwards.
So we modeled this off the signs that had been painted on the front of the stations when they were repainted years ago. So that's what that is, this patch that you see here. It's also the current patch that we have on our uniforms already. So it used to say N06, and that's what we removed. And then still, like I said, our letterhead and like our logos on our engine all still say Clark County too.
Okay.
So just a minor detail, I thought it needed to be addressed. I'm sure everybody's talked about it except for me, so now I did.
So I have a quick clarification, Chief, on the we're hoping to start the hiring process in September for 10 new personnel.
Correct.
and they'll start training on January 1st. But it sounded like we would start running a second engine out of Station 3 on January 1st. Are we going to start running it January 1st, or wait for those folks to finish training?
We could start running it January 1st. We would have to look at what our staffing would be and the overtime cost. But, and then of course, there's always that what if COVID takes out a large chunk of our department for a time that we may have to reevaluate. But the goal is to start that engine January 1st, hire back if needed, and we traditionally have less vacation and time off during those months, so we're heavier staffed. And we're hoping to pick up some lateral hires that maybe we don't have to do as long of academy. So.
Okay, so you're hoping the academy would be over sometime in March, maybe, or?
Yeah, and still September to January is a pretty tight hiring timeline, but we're hoping to get that done.
It is. Okay, thank you for the clarification. Any other questions?
None here.
Done here.
I just want clarification from our secretary, Mr. Taylor. We advertised this as 5 o'clock, and I believe we advertised it that when we're done with this, we'll go into our regular meeting. So let's go into our regular meeting now and not have to wait till 6 o'clock. Is that how you think?
That's exactly how we advertised it, that the regular meeting would follow immediately after.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Does anybody need a 5-minute break out there, or do you want to go on to the regular meeting?
Commissioner Lasbeck,
I'm mobile. I'm good to go.
Yes, go.
we have to transfer screens, so if we could just take a 2-minute break to make that transfer happen.
Okay, let's take a 5-minute break, and we'll come back on live in 5 minutes. How's that?
I'm burning one now.
Okay. Okay, we'll be back in 5.